Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Lowport podcast. We have a stranger on the show who we haven't seen in some number of months. It's the man himself, Tim Herron. How are you, sir?
Dude, I'm doing awesome, Josh.
Yeah.
God, it's been a hectic year, and I feel like a complete schmo to have to have kind of had to duck out on you and not had the opportunity to podcast with you much. But I'm glad to be back. This is great.
Well, thanks for making the time. Yeah, it's a tough thing to be regular with the podcast. I've struggled with it myself, and I don't travel nearly as much as you, so no worries. We're glad to have you back, and we've been able to feature some local shooters in the interim, so it's all good.
Heck
Um,
yeah,
but 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 you had a hectic year. You did a ton of training. You always are gone more weekends than you're home by
I
far, I
am.
think.
Yep.
However, this past weekend you were here in New Mexico, and you and I shot the New Mexico sectional championship. What this year was down in Alamogordo. So I think that would be a great thing to kind of to jump into and discuss how that all went.
Oh my God. So I don't know about you. Well, I do know about you because we kind of talked about it prior to doing the podcast. But I mean, I thought without a doubt. So I've lived in New Mexico since 2018, and I've shot a lot of matches. And I will have to say, like, easily, without a doubt, this was the best, not only New Mexico sectional I think there's been to date. This in my charts, I think this has to go down as probably one of the best sectional matches, period, that I've had the opportunity to get to shoot at. Like challenging stages, uh, very well directed. I think Jeremy Kirschbaum did a phenomenal job to kind of step up to the plate and
You
and
did.
kind of act as the full time like match director for this. Mark Johnson did a great job for the at range, like taking over his range master duties. Like I got to be there from sun up on Wednesday morning. I was able to take most of the week and dedicate to going down there and helping with the cause and build stages and set things up and get to shoot with staff. I was there until Friday afternoon, and then Friday afternoon when staff was done shooting, I had to hightail it back home to kind of hang out with the wife and actually spend a weekend at home enjoying a little bit of downtime. So, but I kind of didn't want to leave. So all the competitors started rolling in on Friday and rubbing elbows and hugs and kisses with everybody. I kind of wanted to hang out and actually stay and staff the match as well. But yeah, I thought it was very well orchestrated and I think it was pulled off exceptionally.
Yeah, I have to echo that sentiment. I think certainly the best New Mexico sectional I've done, and I've done probably four of them now. Um, I can't think of a better sectional match I've done, actually. The quality of the stages was very high. I thought there was a diversity of challenge. There was room to separate yourself on many stages. There were stages where you just had to execute and not hang yourself. It really had everything you'd be looking for. So 12 stages across the match, representing that diversity of challenge. So
So this is
it
a
was really
tall thing to
excellent.
say right
Yeah,
here, but
yeah.
I will say that this match, like even just as a level two, like state sectional match, having 12 stages, none of them were like. Now, granted, I'm sure some would say that stage six, my triple swinger stage, I kind of created, might have been a little gimmicky, but I think without
But it
question, like
ran the whole match. It
the
ran
whole
the
match,
whole
yeah,
match
I
with
thought it
all
was
those
I thought it was
activators. Yeah.
like thanks to it wasn't even just thanks in part to me, thanks to Nate Esky for like really bending over backwards and like doing everything we possibly could to make sure that that particular stage ran without question or without failure. But I would put the 12 stages that we shot at this match up against some of the top area level 3 matches I've shot.
They were really good.
I
Every
thought they were
single
just
one,
really
I
good
thought.
shooting challenges
Um,
without being
mhm.
overly complicated or, again, gimmicky. I mean, we had a balance board, but the balance beam wasn't like a 2x4 turned up on its end. I thought there was I
Yeah,
thought there was just good challenges with good targets. And yeah, just it was straight up good shooting challenges, which I'm a big fan of.
absolutely. And I think I'm not sure if this was the first time the sectional was down in El Magordo in southern New Mexico, but it might have been, and that's kind of out of the way. But I think it was really great to finally let that club have the sectional, because they have a great crop of shooters down there, a lot of really talented people, a lot of really great people who contribute, and I see helping in a ton of matches like the Driscolls and the Schultzes and stuff like that, and
Yes.
Don. And so, you know, it's hard to get people to show up to something that's kind of out of the way like that. Like if you were coming from out of state, you'd probably fly to Albuquerque and then drive 3 hours to Alamogordo, or you just drive straight through and it's going to be 10 hours from Colorado or wherever. But
Yep.
regardless, they really pulled this thing off with the great stages. They had a lot of people back out of helping at the last minute. But even so, the match flowed really, really well. Um, there were no major backups or problems that I saw, and I think everybody pretty much had an excellent match experience. And so kudos to the people who were there and did run the match, like yourself and the people I mentioned, and everybody else, including some folks from Albuquerque who would make the trip down to help. So it just I know
And
it's difficult when you
it
don't
was
have
great to
a
see.
ton of support, but they really, really did pull it off, and it was a great match in spite of the trouble.
I
And
thought it
I
was
think they ended up
phenomenal
with
to
about
see.
150 shooters, which was great.
We did, yeah.
Yeah,
So according to Jeremy, so the maximum number of shooters that New Mexico has ever hosted, ever for a sectional, I think is 151, and we almost tied that. We had 150 entrants. I think there were a lot of people that might probably not have registered for this match simply because of, I don't know, maybe where they were, like where the match was in the past, or I don't know, maybe the stages they didn't think were so good in years past. But I will definitely say without question, like most everybody that didn't come, that might have been on the fence about coming, you should regret the fact that you probably missed out on probably the
yeah,
best state sectional match, I think, in the country. So, and
yeah.
that's even putting it up against like tall honors. And I travel every year to the Illinois sectional match in August every year. Ryan Klaus and the crew there probably, to me, put down the best state match, and I would say our sectional match rivaled that, just in the number of stages, number of crew, how smooth everything flowed. It was great to see. And I know Heidi Chowning, like, really worked her tail off the last, I want to say, 6 to 7 months as the sponsor coordinator. So
Hmm.
I didn't pay attention. I didn't see the prize table, but apparently I think there was something like, I think they said an upwards of $30,000 worth of prizes and things on the prize table as well. So I mean, that's pretty damn phenomenal for a state level 2 match.
Yeah, after the shooting was done, I was helping Jeremy unload a literal trailer full of prizes before the awards, and it was just
Yeah,
red dots and ammo and guns and everything you could want. So it was a very stacked prize table
indeed.
for a sectional match. So Heidi did an incredible job. So yeah, I really couldn't come up with something that they could have done better at this match. I thought it was an absolute success, and they really made it happen down at Alamogordo. And it was
I'll tell
great
you
to see.
the coolest thing for me during just kind of the work week, Wednesday through Friday, was talking to Mark. I can't remember Mark's last name. I'm sure he's going to
Miller,
listen to this.
probably Mark
Forgive
Miller.
me. The gentleman that actually runs the range there at Sidney Paul Gordon Range. I
Oh,
can't remember
okay, yeah.
his name. I want to say it's maybe Mark Douglas, but I'm terrible with last names. But it was awesome to see not just him but his entire crew. Like, I mean, they helped us out with anything that we needed. Like, man, we'd love to have some like scoops or shovels full of dirt to be able to like bury some cables for the activator stage and things like that. That dude fired up the tractor and just like straight came right over with the front bucket full of dirt and was like, "Where do you need it?" I mean, they closed down the entire range for us from like Tuesday all the way through the weekend, just so that the entire USPSA sectional could be had on the whole range, which is like, you don't typically see that either. So I thought it was that
Yeah.
pretty exceptional, like, assistance and guidance and everything from everybody, from every club was well. I think they were well recognized within the entire state. Everybody came down that could, lend a hand or even just come and compete and shoot. So I thought it was great. It was awesome to see.
It was an excellent match, no doubt. So, how did you shoot?
I shot exceptionally well. I've been pretty locked in probably about the last month or so. Like I really kind of ramped up my own practice and training. I kind of parked the single stack gun after handgun nationals was over a few weeks ago, and picked up the limited optics gun again. So it took me about a week to 2 weeks or so to kind of ramp back up to kind of pick up where I left off with that. Kind of had some unfinished business, behind the red dot limited optics gun for the last month or so, and it's been great. So I won the Arizona State championship match 3 weeks prior, and then I shot with staff at Area 4 a week ago prior to this match, and did pretty well there, and was able to hang on to, I think, top 5 in limited optics at Area 4, and then came
Hmm.
and shot with staff after setting up for 2 full days at the sectional, and was able to really put a dominant performance together for the New Mexico sectional. So I
Well,
think
that's
I
awesome.
won.
So you're done with single stack permanently then. You're LO only from this point
I
on,
think
right?
I'm done with single
Yeah.
stack, but I've got a little unfinished business with that for next year too. So I was able to earn a world shoot slot for the U.S. team for Classic Division next year. So I'll get to represent the U.S. In the Classic Division team at the World Shoot in South Africa next September. So this is kind of like my vacation shooting time, where I'm just going to pick a fun gun to shoot and just have some fun shooting the next like 4 or 5 major matches. And so I've got one left. I think we've got Area 2 in November, so I'll be shooting that one, and that'll be my last match in limited optics for a while. So next year, I'm going to dedicate the whole year just to Classic Division, single stack, whatever you want to call it, to hopefully bring home a world title, or at least a gold medal. So
Well, that would be incredible. We're all pulling for you.
I
Um,
appreciate
that kind of mirrors a shooter on my squad. I was so fortunate as to shoot with the great Bob Crow at this sectional match. He's dabbling in open right now for kind of like the last part of the year for the last few matches. But
it. Mhm.
similar to yourself with your World Shoot Classic spot, he has earned a World Shoot Standard spot, which is basically like IPSC limited, so 40 cal
Yep.
2011s and stuff like that. So he's having fun with some optics before he's got to just crush it all next year with iron sights,
With
which it
iron
sounds
sights.
like is parallel to you. So
Yep.
that's pretty
It's gonna
cool.
be it's
Yeah.
gonna be good. It'll be challenging. I'm it's the biggest challenge for me is going to be going to shoot 10 rounds of minor and iron sights for a whole year again after like really being spoiled, shooting 2011s with a red dot and double stack mags and big magwells. And I've been having a lot of fun just really learning more about myself and kind of like where my true physical limitations and beyond actually are. It's neat to be able to like really ramp up the aggression and shoot faster and be able to move faster when you don't have to worry about like reloading all the time or things like that. So, but I've seen both a progression in my shooting speed, my movement speed, stage planning as well, is really improved, as well as like my shot accountability. So I was able to shoot
Mm.
95% of available points at the New Mexico sectional. At Area 4 last week before last, I shot 94% of points, and at the Arizona State Championship, I think I shot 92 or 93% of available points there as well. So, like
Those
I'm
are
like
really
right
upper tier percentages for minor divisions.
now, I've
So
felt really solid with my shooting lately. So
that's
I've
great.
I've had a
Do you
purpose.
think
It's good.
do you, do you think shooting a red dot makes you a better iron sight shooter?
Uh, yes, I do absolutely. So because there's certain things at red dots, like I feel like once you kind of, I don't want to just necessarily get the hang of it. Once you learn to filter out so much information that the red dot immediately gives you to just what, like the bare minimum that's needed then you start to also understand how much information you can filter out from iron
Mm.
sights to just focus on what is barely needed to be able to shoot to a higher level of performance, and maybe slightly lower levels of confirmation too with iron sights. So it's been really good for my shooting and my own progression.
Awesome. Yeah, I feel the same way. The feedback you get from a red dot is just so rich that you can learn about yourself as a shooter a lot more, and the little mistakes you make here or there. Like I usually don't do this. I'm not super analytical in breaking down my shooting, which is probably a limit. But for whatever reason, after this match, maybe because I got to shoot with Bob, who's just such like a technically solid guy in every aspect, that I really
Agreed.
tried to break down my performance and understand where I was failing or what I was doing good at and what I was doing bad at. And I was unhappy with the number of makeups that I had on paper, steel, or otherwise at this match. And from the red dot, I could see that I would miss shots to the right. And I figured out that it was hand tension, not isolating the trigger finger and just kind of, for me, the way I like tense my hand, it pulls shots like
Kind
basically
of pulling the gun.
horizontally straight off to the right. And so plenty of popper makeups, makeups on paper into hardcover or something like that because of that exact reason. And so diving into that, and only because I could see it in the dot and I knew that's what was happening, allowed me to do like a pretty detailed analysis and practice score competitor of where I was losing versus Bob in those respects, or anybody. And
Mhm.
I kind of went through stage by stage, and I remembered exactly where I had makeups and stuff like that, and estimated as fairly as I could what the time penalty was for each of those things,
Mhm.
and tried to correct competitor for all of that. And it ended up being about 4 seconds across a match, which I think I shot in about 226 seconds. But those 4 seconds distributed appropriately across all 12 stages was about a 2.5% difference in match finish. So
Oh
I
yeah.
finished at about 90.5% of Bob or something like that. Um, Third place in open. And so I would have been up to 92%, 92.5% maybe even, if I had just cut out those makeups by isolating my trigger finger. So wow, that's a huge gap right there that you can just identify by watching that. And so that was a
And
huge
the
lesson.
and the great thing about that kind of data, right, is it tells you it tells you a lot about other aspects of your shooting that a lot of times I think we put too much emphasis on to like make corrections. Like, oh my God, I'm 4 seconds off. It's got to be in my footwork, or it's got to be in my stage plan, or it's got to be in my level of aggression. And when you really stop to think about it, like the average makeup shot on steel is going to be somewhere around zero point 0.5 to zero point 0.7 of a second,
Mm-hmm.
right? So four makeup shots is well worth 2.5 seconds of time, or 2 to 2.5 seconds of time right there, like
Yeah.
minimally, right? So when you start to break those kind of things down, it's easy to see then too, where was it a level of aggression that you just didn't have when it came time to execute on game day? Or was it just some teeny tiny little tweaks that we need to make along the way, which to me makes it much easier. Like you know how to isolate those things, and you know what it's going to take to correct it, and it's not like, okay, I have to revamp my entire shooting strategy all over again. It becomes, okay, I just need to be this much more careful on how I press the trigger on steel to avoid those
Yes.
costly makeup shots. Like that's easy day, really. It's 10% more discipline, you know?
Yep, it's that programming of, okay, on these targets, I'm going to need to be very aware of my trigger press, and it's that's pure execution. And I can see now where I failed to program that in, and I essentially did not respect certain targets in this match, and it cost me 2.5%. That's a big difference
It's a
in a
huge
match.
difference.
And then I had two mics in the match, basically caused for the same reason I just explained, except when you have a mic, it's just basically an uncalled mistake, right? Like I called the other ones, those just cost me time and I got the shot back, I got the hit. But there were two mics where I didn't call it. So my visual feedback system failed me essentially. And so those two mics across the match were about another 2.5%. So if I had dialed in that trigger press, if I had programmed appropriately to respect each target and built that, to me, it's actually like a feel. Now I'm like having to program in the feel of
Right.
on these targets, you can rip it. On these ones, you better feel that wall and just move that finger just a little bit to break the shot where it needs to happen.
I
And
agree.
but for enough targets on the match, basically I cost myself 5%. So maybe I could have been second to Bob instead of third. So it's those little details, but it's so cool when you have the opportunity to shoot against really good people like we do in this sport. We get to shoot against basically like the Kobe's and stuff
Right.
at sectionals and area matches and nationals. You get the rubric to grade yourself against. And
I agree.
I
I
kind of
agree.
went to town over the last day or two just trying to figure out exactly where I was messing up. And if I had done all of those things right, sure, that's 5%. But then there's a still for 5% gap against Bob. And as I look at that, and remembering his performances, it seems to me like where I'm losing out and my long-term training goal
Mhm.
is going to be blending positions and stuff like that. Because that
Right.
dude
And that's
is
the great
moving
thing,
out of stuff
right?
and moving into stuff. Yeah, like way
There's
more aggressively.
5% of data there to look at, like, okay,
Yeah.
there's my 6 month to 12-month goal, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a 5% variance there of data collected that is, honestly, that's like two good solid practice sessions of like dry fire and live fire. I'm not saying you're going to correct it completely, but it's maybe little things that you've had a little bit of oversight on, that's just putting in those little pieces again, like, okay, what's it feel like to feel that trigger to the wall, and obviously we know with an open gun there's not much of a wall, but just being a little bit more cognizant in dry fire, right? Or picking just slightly smaller points of aim in dry fire to really prep that wall to that, and then going out in live fire and validating that a couple of times, and it's like, boom, okay, I'm now back on track. So I'm able to correct that immediate 4 to 5% of I want to say degradation, but that 4 or 5% variance in your shooting, like with some immediate results that were just, okay, for the next couple of days, I need to pay attention to these things. And it's not mean like among, over everything else that I'm doing in my practice. It's, I'm just going to pay just a little bit more attention here. Like my shot
Yes.
calling, making sure that I'm not pulling my eyes off of something before I've seen the dot lift. And then the other one is making sure I'm just a smidge more careful on the trigger press on steel. And it's like that right there. That's a 5% improvement in your shooting. I mean, think of the
Yeah. It's
confidence level you have now going to nationals, next week or this weekend.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say. So after this match, knowing I had nationals this coming weekend, I leave tomorrow. We're recording on Tuesday. I leave Wednesday. Um, I set up a little practice stage for myself where I just had 3 sticks on the ground, and I knew my long term goal. My long term goal was better blending, but I knew my
Mhm.
immediate term goal, just for execution at nationals, was the trigger prep thing. Just don't make stupid shots, have less makeups, have less misses. So I set up a little stage where I had 3 sticks on the ground. I started on the left side of them, and I would step in and I would shoot an array that was 5 to 10 yards on my right, which had an open target at 10 yards, and then like kind of a splayed set of targets with a target and a no shoot, and then another target at like 5 or 7 yards probably. And so I would shoot that on the move after I stepped into the first section, and then I would run across the second big section to get like a big motion going, and then
Right.
I'd run across the last stick, and I would shoot an open target at probably only 5 yards, very close, and then a partial target at probably 12 yards, and then I would have two 8-inch steel circles at about 20 yards. And so for me, that's you try to trick yourself, you try to lure yourself into traps, I feel like, in training, if you really want to get better. And so I had a balance of control and attack targets in different sequences with movement. And it was really revealing to see uh, how I could execute on that stage and what I had to think about to really build that in. And that partial target on the right, I was so mean to myself. I think I said it was at 15 yards or something like that, but it was basically a no shoot that only left about an inch or maybe an inch and a half of A zone, like horizontally. And so it was really dirty. Yeah, it was really nasty. And so it was really easy to provoke the exact mistake I was noticing at the match, which is yanking that shot right when I clenched my firing hand. And so I elicited that out of myself, plus with the far steals. So basically, I could kind of get myself into this fast paced with the other targets and movement and stuff like that. But then you have to rein yourself back in for the control targets at the end. And it was a really, really productive practice session for me. And I could see my consistency and hit factors getting better as I went through it, and was reinforcing certain like mantras and approaches before I ran that stage.
Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah.
So going back to the sectional, if I was to ask you, of the 12 stages, do you have a favorite?
Ooh, yes, I do. And so lucky for me, I think I got to reshoot it actually. I think stage 5 was my favorite. It was kind of a circular stage almost. And there was a tight port on the right side where you could see a paper target, a steel activator that threw up a bobber, and then you'd have to go to the back corner after shooting that array. At least this is how I broke it down. It was a start aim-or stage. And that there were 3 targets, an open really close behind a barrel set, and then a stack with a no-shoot in between. And then similar set with hardcover on the left. And then you would go up, and there were a couple targets spread out on the front right corner. And then at the back, there were 3 paper targets with some hardcovers and no-shoots maybe. And then a really cool steel activator where you would shoot down basically a popper, and that would activate 2 plates that were swinging. And you'd have to shoot those plates down as they were oscillating. So it felt like I've seen a lot of activators like that in IPSC and stuff like that, but I don't see that a lot, I feel like, in USPSA. And so that stage was really fun and just pure execution, I thought. I was really happy because even though I reshot that, when I reshot it, I was only about 1/100th of a hit factor different on my reshoot than my first run. And I had to reshoot it because the bobber stayed up, which didn't make a difference for me because I shot it as it was going up. But regardless, I did it anyway for competitive equity's sake. And it worked out. But yeah, that stage was super cool. And just like banging on the steel activator, swinging steel was, oh man, that's so satisfying.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And then I also liked
swinging steel, like when you come in on it, right? So the activator, it's like bing, and then swinging steel starts going. You're like ding ding. It just like hit both plates almost immediately. But that was super cool. That was a fun stage.
Yeah, it's like, did I just do that? It's a subconscious shooting thing. It feels right. Really good. Stage 2 I thought was really good. I'm biased because I think I won that stage in the match. I think it was my only stage win, but that was a fun one. That was where you pick the gun up off the table and load it and then run in, and there's a bunch of stuff to shoot. And I was proud of that one because I saw a lot of people doing a different stage plan than me, but I shot what I thought worked, and it turned out to be a stage win. And so you pick the gun up off of the table, you load it, you run into the shooting area, and pretty much everybody went to the back left corner, shot some hardcover targets, went to the right corner, shot some other targets on that side, all close stuff. And then there was a target kind of in the front left that a lot of people would shoot after that back right position. They would step up a step or two, shoot that, and then come back and shoot stuff on the front right side, and then shoot the front center array, which had a couple paper targets, an activator, and then a double swinger, basically. And so everybody was doing that. But to me, it felt like too much swinging to stop from that right corner to come over and then keep running up. So I just went corner, corner. I ran up, shot the center, right, shot the center, and then I just took a step over and shot that back left one that everybody was picking up from the back right side.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be a stage win, and it felt comfortable and consistent to me. And so even though I saw a lot of good people doing something different, I was proud of myself for just doing what I thought made sense and executing the plan that made sense to
Heck
me.
yeah.
Yeah.
Heck yeah. Yeah, that was a fun stage too. That had a cool double swinger that it didn't just swing by itself. It swung, but then it kind of lingered and kind of did this weird kind of dance thing. And then it wasn't quite
Yeah.
like a Targets USA Holy Monkey swinger, but it had two targets on it. And in one, you never got a full presentation of the actual target. Like you had to aim between like the black hardcover steel that kind of covered the entire contraption for that
Yeah.
for that left paper, and you basically just had to hold the dot or hold the sights there and just let the target come to you, go away, and then come back to you again, which was I thought was pretty neat.
It was a cool target for sure.
It was.
And
It was.
I got hung up on it. I came and I hit, I think, the right target, which on
Uh-huh.
the swinger, which really hung out the longest. I got that twice in one pass. And then I came back and I hit the left one as it was swinging left. But then I had to wait on the second pass.
Yep.
I'm not sure if anybody just went bam, 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 but it was a hard timing to work out.
It
I
was
feel like it
really
was a
hard.
very
Yeah.
challenging.
I thought it was pretty cool though, because like you had to kind of rely on kind of what you saw underneath from like the contraption swinging to kind of rely on like,
Hmm.
okay, it's going to bring the target back now, and then it's like, okay, it's gone, it's going to bring it now, and like you had to catch it as it just kind of passed again. That this little window of opportunity you had right in between, which was cool. I dug it. I
Awesome.
liked that stage.
Yeah. Just another great stage from this match.
Yeah.
So what was your favorite?
Um, So I've kind of the same way. I've got two. Um, the first one, I'm probably maybe a little biased because I think had a stage win on that, which was stage 9, which was I think
Oh.
Diana Driscoll's stage where you started in the middle and you had an open paper and a partial paper on the left behind barrels, and then you kind of had
Hmm.
a right target kind of hung out behind a wall. You had two targets that were like a stacker and a port, and then you had like 6 hoser targets. Well, you thought they were hoser targets because they
But
were
they
all,
kind of like present as you walk through the
yeah,
barrels and stuff, right?
yeah, they
Yeah.
all present at slightly different times as you're kind of walking through the barrels. And then when you get done with that, you like I had to make a reload, and then you go down range, and it was like a 15-yard, like a 14 to 15-yard tuxedo target. And then there was like 4 pieces of steel that were separated by a wall, and then a couple of like really close, like 2-yard tuxedo targets, kind of wrapped around the corners there. And like that one was a lot of fun because there the disaster factor like was really elevated there. It would have been really easy to tell yourself like those targets are 5 yards away and all those close targets around the barrels. I'm just gonna like absolutely like just smash these like ripping fast splits, but you couldn't because you were constantly moving. So it was a lot of
Yeah.
blending and then like
And they
stopping
were
because
tuxes and it was, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah.
I kind of liked it just because there was some deception going on there. Like I thought that was, and even when I walked it, I kept telling Diana, I'm like, I don't know, and then like watching a couple of guys kind of ride the struggle bus, during staff day on it, I was like, okay, I've got to pay a little bit more respect to those targets. So I just did the damn thing, right? Just kind of respected the targets as I needed to, and 1 for 1 on the steel, and ended up, I think high overall stage win on that stage. So I'm kind of biased
Nice.
on that, but I liked that it drew you in, regardless of
Well,
whether
that
I had a
stage,
or not. It drew you in and tempted you to go faster than you probably should have.
it did that stage. Before you get to your next one, that stage showed me another lesson, and the that kind of third array, I guess, where the targets are presenting differently through the barrels and stuff like that.
Yep.
That revealed to me that I think that my step sizes when I'm walking a stage are way different than my sizes when I'm shooting it,
When you're shooting it, yeah,
because I had my exact plan figured out of how those things are going to appear in my walkthrough. And then when I was actually shooting it, I think I got further ahead and so they appear differently. And so I was like, oh, and I got through that part okay, thank God. But it was totally different. So that's another thing I need to figure out, like why am I underestimating or whatever it is my step distance in the walkthrough? But yeah, it looked really different when I actually shot
So I
it
thought
than what
I
I
thought that
planned.
stage I thought that stage
Yeah,
was good, just like I said, from like a stage designer's kind of deception, like
yeah.
kind of strategy there. I thought was really, really good. I'd say honestly, I think my most favorite stage honestly was your stage design, stage 3.
Oh, I'm so
Um,
pleased to hear that. Thank you, Tim.
so I liked it. I
There were a lot of complaints on my squad, so I'm glad to hear some
I would
positive feedback.
I think I would
Yeah,
have liked it a little better had
yeah,
there been 3 less like no shoot partials on it. If they'd have been wide open targets to really lure you into being
hmm,
able to blend, like being able to position blend or take a particular position kind of on the move or
yeah,
enter and exit kind of on the move. Whereas I think that I, I think the range master got a little zealous with the use of hardcover and no shoots on that particular stage, trying to solve like possible wall shoots and wall hits and things like that by just throwing a ton of hardcover and no shoots out there, which made it a very positional stage. But man, you had to hit each position perfect or you were doomed. If you overran like 2 steps to the right or to the left, certain targets weren't necessarily appearing the way you'd walked it. It wasn't a memory stage or anything. It was just like execution had to be on point on that
yeah,
stage. So, and I think it had a really good blend of long distance targets, high difficult targets with a few kind of easy, get on the gas kind of targets as well. I thought it was a really good blend, and it had a lot of movement in it. It didn't have much opportunity to shoot on the move, but it did have just a lot of movement in it, which I kind of dug.
well, well, thank you. Yeah, I called it IPSIC, SICK, and so I
Yeah,
think it lived up to that name. I think it came out to be the targets were harder shooting challenges than I had originally anticipated, and so it was even more positional than I kind of planned it. But it was unique in the match. I think there were a lot of flowy stages in the match, which I really liked, and I thought that
I
was
agree.
awesome. But this was something different, and
And it
it
wasn't
was
choppy, but it was just very positional. Like you get into this position and you did have multiple targets to shoot. So it wasn't like, run 5 or 10 yards and then stop, shoot one target, and then move and stop and shoot one target. It was like it did flow, but it didn't match the same type of like stage flow that other stages had, which I thought was great. It stood out on its own. I thought it was sized correctly to the bay that they decided to put your stage on, and like good use of distance on things. There was a 25 yard US popper, out, which was pretty cool. Like you really had to be on the sights quite a bit on that stage, which was good.
Yeah, I took a survival mode kind of mentality on that stage, and I'm never as fast as Bob. Like maybe one or two stages, I was slightly faster than him on time. Usually,
Well,
he
you got
beats
to
me
think
by a
though too.
second.
Bob's got like legs by themselves that are like 7 foot long, right? So
there's there's other reasons why he shoots faster than me, but let's blame it on his legs. But 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 for me, I was just like, I'm gonna hit these dang targets, and that's all I'm gonna worry about on this stage. And I did it. I got out clean on that one, and a lot of people didn't. It was hard shooting,
it
and
was
so I was more off of the pace, I guess, than I normally was. But there's some stages that are just survival, I think,
sure.
and you have to understand what your skill set is and approach it appropriately. So, could I have shot it a little more aggressively? Maybe, but a marginal gain could have easily been negated by a mic no shoot, which
Exactly.
I
The
saw
risk the risk
plenty of people have on that stage.
Yeah. There was a fine
Yep.
line to walk between risk versus reward on that stage.
Yeah. Yep. So, so again, a diverse part of the challenge of this match,
Mhm.
which is excellent.
Absolutely. I would definitely like to see sectionals be revisited down there in Otero County at Sidney Paul Gordon Range. I thought they did a great job. I'm looking forward to hopefully future expansion that range I think has kind of got in the plans to possibly be able to to be a host. I don't think maybe next year, but maybe the year after, possibly might be in the
That's
cards.
right. Well,
So
I think it's well worth it, and hopefully the reputation gets out there that the New Mexico sectional is now an excellent match. Like this one was, like you were saying, is top tier. I think you could put it against any other match, section match in the country, and it could hold its own, if not win.
easily,
Which
like I said,
I don't think is something you could say
put it
before.
against a lot
So
of area
huge
matches.
improvements. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So, and I believe the announcement came. I'm not for sure if it's 100% public, but I'm pretty sure Jeremy kind of announced that next year the plan I think is to have the New Mexico Sectional Championship be at Legacy Range or Legacy Ranch, which is the new name for the old Founders Ranch range in Edgewood, New Mexico. So, kind of again maybe a little bit more. It's definitely going to be kind of in my own backyard, almost about 25 minutes away from me in Edgewood. It's about 40 minutes or so east of Albuquerque, so easy to get to. Um, I know. I know the gentleman that purchased the range there has been doing a lot of due diligence and like range expansion and uh, straightening out and widening some bays and adding some other bays and things like that too. Parker Tomasi is one of the owners there at Legacy Ranch, and I believe is looking forward to hosting the New Mexico sectional for next year. So,
Yeah.
and I
I
believe Jeremy told me he's planning on something ridiculous like 14 stages if we can for next year's sectional. So, guys, if you know anything about like level 2 and level 3 matches, those of you that are listening, so most level 3 area championship matches, which are like the one step away from like nationals, those are generally limited to 12 to 13 stages or 12 to 14 stages. And our state sectional match next year is slated to have in upwards of 13 to 14 stages. So, yeah,
yeah.
going to be
Well,
awesome.
I to just be a broken record, the stages were so good this year. I think that the new leadership, like Heidi and Jeremy, uh, the Driscoll, everybody that's involved with the sectional now is doing such a good job that the match is so much improved that is 100% worth shooting. It was great. They got 150 down in Alamogordo, New Mexico this year, which is kind of hard to get to, honestly, because it's
It
3 hours
is.
from Albuquerque. So if you're coming from another state, it's either a super long drive or a flight and a pretty long drive. So, but I'm hoping that having it at Legacy Ranch this year, which is an amazing venue. I haven't been there yet since they reopened, but even when it was Founders, before all the improvements that Mr. Tomasi are making,
Yeah.
um, come to fruition. Like it's just an amazing range. It's not quite as arid as a lot of the other parts of New Mexico. It's kind of like almost foresty trees and stuff. It's a great place, and it's logistically way easier because you just need to get to Albuquerque, and then each day is a pretty easy commute.
Yep.
Like I hope that is a gateway drug for people to figure out how good this sectional is going to be with this crew of people that's running it now.
I would
So
like I would like my challenge to everybody that hopefully will be listening and other people along throughout the year. My goal would be to exceed not just 150 shooters at the match. My goal would be to break 200. Like I would love to
yeah,
see
and with
200 to 250 shooters at our sectional match.
and if
Um,
they do 14 stages, 200 is easy. You can fit
yeah,
that in
easy
no
day.
problem. Yeah.
Easy. And probably break it into a like an like kind of like we did this year, like an 8 and 4, but it'll be like an 8 stage and 6 stage match. So 8 stages
Mhm.
on Saturday, 6 stages on Sunday, or maybe a 7-7 approach, or maybe doing like a 10-4, or something like that. But I think an 8-6 approach would be really, really good. Especially if we can really kind of build some of the stage diversity, maybe adding a couple of short stages, 8 to 10 round short courses that are meaningful and challenging, not just stand and shoot speed shoots and things. But I think, I don't know, Jeremy has already
Tim
kind of,
here in a short course.
yeah. So Jeremy has kind of
Yep.
tasked me with kind of brainstorming some ideas for uh, stage designs and things like that. I'm sure he's going to do the same thing with you and some of the other folks that brought forth some really good stage designs for this year's match, to hopefully be stage designers again for next year. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the challenge. I'm not for sure kind of what capacity I'll be helping with the match beyond stage designer or something like that, but maybe do help out with some assistant direction or things like that. I think it'd be a lot of fun too. So my heart
Well,
and soul kind of got poured into this one a little bit this year, and I'd really like to do the same next year and maybe even to a higher level and really help the state, and especially the shooting community kind of grow from this.
yeah, I think we have a match we can be proud of now.
I
Um,
agree.
and I think they just crushed it despite challenging circumstances this year in Alamogordo. And I can't wait for a 14 stage sectional at Legacy Ranch this year. That's going to be super incredible.
I agree.
Um, and if you're a local and you haven't gotten a membership at Legacy Ranch yet, you should probably consider that. I need to do that myself still. But they're starting to ramp up their matches and stuff like that. They've got a 2-gun match coming up. I think they're planning on doing 3-gun, maybe even USPSA soon. So there's going to be a diversity of practical shooting there, in addition to all the great sporting place courses and stuff they have. So it's a
Yeah,
really nice place to go shooting. And you should absolutely check it out. And for those out-of-staters, mark your calendars next year, because I think the New Mexico sectional is not going to be something you'd like to miss.
I agree.
Cool. And so, Tim, you said I think Area 2 is coming up for you. Is that your last match? Kind of
Area
major
2 will
match
be
of the
my
year?
last major this year. Um, for 2024, my 2025 schedule is all filled for teaching. I'm waiting now to hear. I'm sure USPSA will make their announcement for when all the nationals dates will be next year, and I'll start filling in blanks for major matches for next year as well. But yeah, I do know I am going to host my annual holiday hangover match in
Mm.
January at my home range here. So I'm hoping, if I can, to be able to break ground on some more bays at my range,
Excellent.
maybe before January, but if not, then definitely after the holiday hangover match in January. I'll be expanding. I'm probably planning on 4, if not 5 more bays at my home
Wow.
range here, the Tim
So
Herrick
that'll take you
Shooting.
to like 8 or something like that?
Yeah, if I can get 5 more, that'll put me at 8, and one of
Okay.
those bays will be 50 yards wide by 50 yards deep, so I'd be able
All
to
right.
easily host a 10-stage match, like at my place, in years coming too, which would be pretty cool. But yeah, no, so the holiday hangover match I've got slated, which is a pro-am style, pro-am style match at my range, this first weekend of January. So I think it's January 4th and 5th. So it'll probably be on that Sunday, January 5th, and we'll do a potluck and special trophies and all kinds of cool stuff like we did this year. So it might be cold. It's freaking up in the mountains in New Mexico, so it probably will
It
be.
probably
But
will be, but
it was
it's
a good
fun and
time
something a
last
little
year.
different. You don't.
I've got I've recently purchased 25 more walls, 55 more target stands, 15 more pieces of steel. I've got a couple of Texas stars. I've got a swinging individual steel. I've got all kinds of more props and things like that. I've been trying to expand my range as well, so there'll be a lot more falling steel at the holiday hangover match. It's going to be bigger. I think I'm going to open it to hopefully 75 to 100 shooters possibly instead of 45 like I did this past year. So I
Wow.
don't know.
So
It's going to be
that's
good.
pretty big.
So I'll be planning on quite a bit. So
Well, I'm excited for that. It was fun last year. The pro am style is definitely a
yeah,
different flavor than Hit Factor, and you kind of have to approach the matches differently. So it's a super fun thing to do in the off season. And if you're going to be able to bring something like 100 people out, then I think just about every regular shooter in Albuquerque can probably go give that a try. And I would recommend that they do.
awesome. Yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Very cool. All right. Well, Tim, I don't have too much more. I'm just going to try to finish packing up for nationals tonight, and my only approach there is try to have better trigger control and not shoot so many makeups. And I'm just going to let everything else happen.
I think your approach is good, Josh, and I think you're prepared to crush it. I really do.
Well, thank you. As an aside, do you know, uh, uh, Jay of Mars on Instagram?
I do. Yeah, Jay Slater.
Yeah, he makes this super cool thing. He's adapted the ELO ranking algorithm, ELO. I can't remember exactly what that stands for, but it's used for ranking people in chess, and I think some other like player versus player sports. But he's adapted that algorithm to work for like a many versus many type of sport like USPSA, and I've
Mm-hmm.
had a really fun time like kind of watching myself progress through those ELO rankings. And so, almost aside from match finish or earning a new classification or something like that, this ELO ranking that Jay publishes is a really fun thing to watch. So if you don't know what it is, go check out Jay of Mars, I think separated by underscores, on Instagram, and check out his ELO rankings. And if you shot major matches, I think level twos or above, he has you in his database because he scrapes practice score and you can see where you're at. And it's another fun mini game you can check out, kind of. But the scores are really predictive of match finishes. Like it's a realistic algorithm. So um, I'm kind of starting to set some goals for myself that are based on ELO. And I'm not sure if I want to shoot open or not next year, but I think I'm trying to set an ELO goal for myself based on my outcome at nationals. And if I exceed that, maybe I'll keep spending the money to shoot open. Otherwise, I might try something
That's
else.
awesome.
But it's just another really cool thing. I don't know if you track yourself there or not, but it's
I've
awesome
looked
when you
at it
see
a
that
little
kind
bit,
of
but I've not really tracked myself through it too much.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm gonna have to
Well,
give it a look now. Now I'm intrigued.
yeah, I would say give it a look. Like he makes match predictions using that system, and they're usually pretty accurate.
Oh, that's awesome.
So it works well. Yeah.
Very cool.
Um,
Very cool.
yeah. Just
Well, dude.
another mini game within the game.
Well, good luck at nationals. I think, like I said, I think you're ready. This match this past weekend was a great way to kind of get warmed up and get yourself ready. So I think you're going to do well. I'll be rooting for you.
Well, thank you, sir, and good luck to you at Area Two and everything else. And thanks again for coming back on the podcast. Hopefully we can
Absolutely.
keep doing this
We're
and
gonna
creating
make
content
this
for
a bit
these.
more routine.
The community demands it in New Mexico and abroad. So thanks again, and I'll see everybody on the next one.
All right. Take care, guys.
See ya.